While it may be disappointing that school, sports, and other activities are canceled, these cancellations help stop or slow the spread of coronavirus. Canceling events that draw crowds is an example of social distancing. Social distancing means increasing the physical space between people to avoid spreading illness. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Working from home and visiting electronically instead of in person are also ways to stay safe. This message is sponsored by the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, the Phoenix Tube Company, the law firm of Declator Cohen and DePrisco, Solomon Jewelers, and General Needs Charity, serving our homeless veterans with dignity. And now, here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
Good Sunday evening to you. No, not Mark and AJ, Mark and Ryan again. AJ is sitting at home. I think he's doing his Trivial Pursuit contest right now via Zoom. Yeah, working on a puzzle, doing stuff like that. But it's okay. We get it. People are doing what they got to do during these really strange times. We're glad that we can give you an hour and a half of a break from whether it be Diamond Dart, whether it be Netflix binge watching or Hulu binge watching, or Trivial Pursuit for that matter. We're happy to be here and talk a little bit of sports, even though there's no real sports going on. But it's what we like to do. We are also now simulcasting over Facebook Live, so feel free to throw some comments in the chat room. That's always good. We appreciate that because we can get it on the air as well. And we shout out to Mark, who's watching out there as well. So good stuff. And when we have our guests, tonight's guests, Ed Lynch and Brian Boyle, if there's a question you want us to ask, throw it in that chat room. We do see it, and we'll try to get the question asked of our guest. Right now, it's time for the Capco Major League Baseball Report. And with baseball hopefully right around the corner, it means warm weather is right around the corner as well. It's a great time to keep those windows and doors open, especially since we're not outside as much. Let the fresh air in and keep the bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty, patented speed reducer, so it will not snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for free estimates and purchase a unit before April. Well, it's a little late for that. April 1st to get yours with free installation. I'm sure they'll extend that if you mention Sports Talk New York. That's 631-440-1100 or visit clearviewlongisland.com. How you doing, Johnny? How you hanging in?
I'm hanging in, probably in need of a haircut, but other than that, I'm hanging in just fine.
Yeah, I don't have that problem, unfortunately. So, a lot of things are things that we might not have paid attention to in the past, one of which is the esports, the MLB, the Show 20 contest. And Met fans had a lot to be cheering for. Jeff McNeil actually made the semifinals. What do you make of the fact that Jeff was in the semifinals? Something for Met fans to cheer about.
Hey, great, good for him. And nobody knew. It's so funny when they have these kind of tournaments and they seed these players like they really know how good a video game player a player is, rather than an athlete. Like when they seeded for the NBA tournament, they seeded Kevin Durant first, and he went out in the first round because he was the best player in the game, but not necessarily the best video game player. But that wasn't the case this year with Blake Snell being a number one seed and winning the whole thing. But good for Jeff to hang in, and I hope that he at least gave out his handle so that other people can play him during these difficult times as well.
Yeah, you know what? I actually got MLB The Show.
I saw you made some progress this week. You have the 22 strikeouts.
I had
with
20.
the
Wait. I had some progress, and I thought I was ready. So, Josh downloaded it also, which I didn't know you could actually download the game. You didn't actually have to go and buy it.
Yeah.
So he got it, and he said, it's still downloading. I play an hour. And, I got 2 hits. And every other at bat, when I was playing against the computer, I was hitting home runs. I gave up 5 runs, but as the game progressed, I fielded better. I was throwing to the wrong base. I wasn't running when I should be running. I was pressing the right button instead of the left button. But the game with DeGrom was just insane. A 22 strikeout performance. But it's interesting, John, because I'm sure, lighting up the corners, dropping those curves in there, bending people's knees. But this, all right, full disclosure, this will tell you what kind of child I am. Okay, so what do? The first game I play out of the box, New York Mets versus Houston Astros. And what do you think I did?
Oh, you got to hit someone.
Oh, of course. I drilled the first 3 Houston Astros.
Are you hitting them because of the sign stealing?
Absolutely.
Or are you hitting them because of Mike Scott?
A little of both, but that just shows you where my head has been at. But it was pretty funny stuff. All right, so another thing that we're seeing tons of these days on social media is the best of. Your favorite team, this, that. One that I was tagged in the other day, and it was interesting because it was the best player, not your favorite, at every position that you saw play. Meaning you can't be you and I never saw Babe Ruth. So it's the best guy we saw in our lifetime play. So I figured it'd be interesting to get your list. So let's start with catcher. Who was the best catcher you saw play?
I have, we discussed this last week, the best, your favorite player growing up. So, and I always thought that the complete package in terms of catching was Gary Carter. But the best player, if you're talking about pure hitting, it would probably have to be Mike Piazza. I think so. For me, it would be between one of those 2 guys.
Okay. All right. First base.
For me, it's Albert Pujols. His peak was as good as anybody's peak going, and I would and first base for me, and he got every clutch hit you asked of him in his time with the Cardinals. Not so great now with the Angels, but my answer is Albert Pujols.
Okay, so just for people that might not follow me on Facebook, my catcher was Johnny Bench. My first baseman was Miguel Cabrera. Obviously, he played a bunch of positions, but just the pure hitting, his fielding was suspect, but still, I mean, Miggy was just still one of the best hitters in the game. Second base, who do you got?
Best combination of fielding and hitting and clutch play, it would have to be Roberto Alomar.
Okay, I went with Rod Carew. Just a number of reasons, obviously, but Alomar is a great choice as well. Here's where a lot of people got all over me. Best shortstop that you ever saw play the game.
That's a tough one. You could go a number of ways. I went with Cal Ripken for the dependability. I went with again the combination of hitting and fielding and just how long he lasted. So Cal Ripken was my choice. Okay, my choice for this was where people got all over me, and I think I might have been swayed by the fact that we did a Facebook Live this week with Brett Boone, and Brett Boone said that this guy was the greatest athlete he ever played with, and take that for what it's worth, because he also played with Ken Griffey Jr. on his team, and he also played with Neon D on his team. But I went with Barry Larkin, and I got people saying, how could you take Larkin over Cal Ripken? And I love Cal Ripken as a player, but I think that Cal Ripken's greatness gets amplified because of the streak. And I don't want to take anything away from him. I just think Larkin might have been a hair better in the field. And again, I was more of a National League guy and still am. So I probably saw Larkin play a lot more than I saw Ripken play day in and day out. But I went with Larkin. That's the only one that people really got all over me. All right, your best third baseman ever. Well, in full disclosure, I saw your list when I was making my list, and I didn't want to really double up on your list, and I saw that you had Mike Schmidt, and Mike Schmidt is a great choice and probably the choice, but I think George Brett deserves to be in that conversation. So because again, fielding, hitting, clutch play, Brett had it all, and so I wanted to give Brett a mention and make him my choice. And I also wanted to say that if his career keeps going up and the way it's been going, I think Nolan Arenado could outpace everybody.
I agree with that. And you know what? Brett was right there. And what guy who really creeped into my consciousness, but I just couldn't, was Brooks Robinson. I mean, just because of the fielding. Right field, another one where I took a little bit of heat, maybe because I didn't see his full body of work, but I loved him. My right fielder was Roberto Clemente.
And I don't go back that far, so I can't choose Clemente. I mean, I was 3 when he passed away. So I went with Ichiro. I mentioned him in the past couple of weeks in terms of best players that I've seen. But another person who deserves to be in that conversation for me is Tony Gwynn.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a coin flip between the two of them. Ichiro just had some more weapons in his more tools in his toolbox.
All right, center field.
I think Ken Griffey Jr. deserves a mention, but I couldn't be contrary on this one. It's Mike Trout.
Which is interesting because, you kind of think back to when you're younger, you kind of pigeonhole those guys. But I went with today, obviously, Mike Trout as well. Today's player is the only guy that's playing currently today, and Cabrera, that made my list. All right, what do you got for left field?
Well, again, I saw your pick, and I saw that you picked Barry Bonds. And, again, great pick. But if I'm putting together a team, I'm going to need a leadoff hitter, and the best that ever was Ricky Henderson. So I'm
nice.
having him as my left fielder.
All right, good choice there. All right, rounding out, let's go with your DH and your starting pitcher and your closer before we go.
Closer is Mariano Rivera. I don't think anybody comes close. Starting pitcher is tough. I wish I had seen more of Tom Seaver's body of work, but I went with Pedro Martinez. Randy Johnson deserves a mention too. Designated hitter, I went with Edgar Martinez. I think he's the one that put the position of designated hitter in the forefront. And pinch hitter, because every time I saw him come up, he would get a pinch hit, and he was noted as as the greatest pinch hitter of his time up until that point. Manny Mota.
Man, oh, nice. All right. I went with all-time Lenny Harris just because he's the all-time pinch-hitting leader and obviously a friend of the show. All right, Johnny, we'll have to think of another list for next week unless we get some action and we get some baseball going. John Coppinger heard here each and every week over 540 AM Sports Talk New York, as well as the Facebook Live edition now. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, Ed Lynch joins us, so keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen & DePrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RNP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at PoliceofficersRightToSue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's PoliceofficersRightToSue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman with you this Sunday evening. A beautiful Sunday here on Long Island. Absolutely exquisite weather. Lots of people out there walking, keeping their social distance. So it was good for people to get out today for sure. We hope you enjoyed the day, and then now we're sitting and enjoying us. So right now, joining us now is a man who was drafted by the Texas Rangers in the 1977 Major League Baseball draft. After 3 years in their farm system, the Rangers sent him to the New York Mets, and on September 18, 1979, as part of an earlier deal in which the Mets sent Willie Martinez to the Rangers for 2 players to be named later. The other player the Rangers sent back to the Mets was their former first baseman, Mike Jorgensen. He made his Major League Baseball debut with the Mets on August 31st, 1980 against the San Francisco Giants. After his career ended, he attended the University of Miami School of Law, graduated in 1991. With his law degree in hand and prior baseball experience, he was able to land management positions with the San Diego Padres and Chicago Cubs, where he eventually became the general manager. Last summer, he spent some time here on Long Island as Wally Backman's pitching coach for the Ducks. It is a pleasure to welcome back Ed Lynch to Sports Talk New York. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Mark.
First and foremost, how are you and your family during these trying times?
We're good. As you know, we're in Arizona, and because of the lack of density of people, and no mass transit, and just not the overwhelming numbers like you guys have in New York, we have a lot fewer cases and fortunately a lot less fatalities during this period of time than certainly New York has had.
this past month, the great sports writer Bob Nightingale of USA Today did a great piece on you. Actually, it was early February, losing kind of track of time here. It's actually the first time in nearly 40 years that you are not doing something baseball related. That combined with the fact that there's no live baseball to watch, what's that been like for you?
It's been difficult. I mean, when you've done something as long as I have in the game of baseball, not only my 40 years in the professional level, but 4 years in college, 4 years in high school, little league, the whole thing. So I had basically almost 55 years, deeply involved in the game of baseball. So, the fact that I'm not working in the game, and on top of that, there is no season. It's pretty difficult to handle.
Yeah, it is tough. I imagine you're just jonesing for that game to watch. So, it's interesting because few people in the game today have the experience or your expertise that you have. You've done basically everything imaginable in the game. Were you surprised with a lot of positions that opened up last off season that your phone was not ringing off the hook?
Well, yes and no. I mean, these young guys that are, running these clubs, as I did when I was the general manager, they have they have the right to run their organizations the way they feel they need to, and maybe my skill set doesn't match the skill set that they're looking for going forward. I don't begrudge them at all. I understand completely. I mean, I had to let some people go when I first came into positions of authority in baseball, and in retrospect, a lot of those guys did deserve it. So, I understand completely. It's their game to run now. Am I disappointed? Sure I am, but I understand, they have the right to run their organization the way they feel they need to.
So at what point did you feel time that, the pressure or just it was time to move on and pursue a new occupation in a different field?
Well, I think after a couple of years, my wife was telling me to please get out of the house. So that's when I came to Long Island last summer, and, physically I just wasn't able to handle the schedule, playing 7 days a week, throwing one, sometimes two groups in batting practice, long bus rides. And, I was the oldest guy in the league in uniform. So my body just couldn't take it. So it was in my best interest, and I was disappointed, but it was in my best interest to resign. Halfway through, I was just proud of the fact that we won the first half and guaranteed they were going to be in the playoffs. So, so it was about a couple of years after, not having an opportunity in baseball, I thought it was time to move on.
It's also interesting to note that you are now a realtor, and if I'm correct, you're working for a guy who not only did you bring up to the majors for his 5 innings of work with the Cubs, but it's also the guy you released. Is that correct?
That is true. And I don't remember releasing him. And we were having breakfast in the morning, and I had to go back. He was up on the big club for 2.5, 3 weeks, 20 years ago. And, I have a good memory, but it's not that good. And then, I'm sitting there and, we're talking, and he said, Ed, I really appreciate, your professionalism when you released me. And I was taken aback, but I didn't want to admit I didn't remember. So I said something like, well, you're always a real good pro and real professional. And I'm sitting there like the guy in the Geico commercial, Pinocchio, my nose is getting longer and longer, we thought we had a good laugh on that one, but he's done extremely well for himself. I'm very proud of what he's accomplished. He's overcome cancer, and he's one of the top producing agents for Keller Williams, and I couldn't work for a better guy.
So there's so many things in that article that caught my eye, one of which is you talking, and you alluded to just a little while ago, talking about when you became the Cubs general manager, replacing Larry Himes. You said, when you get the reins, you want to do it your way, and I did it my way. I had a vision of what I wanted to do. Certain people were very capable and productive in their positions, but didn't fit with the vision I had. So I fired some people that didn't deserve to be fired. So first off, what was your vision? When you come in as a GM, what is the vision for the Cubs at that point?
Well, people think you come in with a plan like, okay, we're going to be a speed defense pitching organization, or we're going to be a power organization. I mean, there aren't that many players available where you have the option to go one way or the other in your philosophy. My philosophy was always to have the best scouting department we could have boots on the ground, watching players at the amateur level and at the professional level, and try to acquire and promote the best possible baseball players. People that not only had the skill set to play, they had the physical attributes, but we wanted winning type players. We wanted players that were tough, that knew how to play the game of baseball. And when they came to the park every day, their one goal was to win the game. Their goal was not to, obviously it's an individual game. Every hitter's out there trying to get 4 hits every day. But really the overriding goal that we wanted our players to have is they're going out there at 1 o'clock or 7:05, whatever it was, to win the game. And if that means moving a runner over from second to third with nobody out in the 8th inning, and your batting average goes down and your OPS goes down and all that other stuff goes down, and then that runner scores, or the next guy hits a sacrifice fly, and you win the game, that is a successful at bat. Numbers don't measure every successful at bat possibility, and that's one of the things we tried to stress.
You mentioned having a plan or maybe not having a plan, but was there anything in your playing career that you picked up on in the front office that you said, I'm going to do this differently? I do not agree with that. This is not the way that I'm going to run an organization.
Yeah, I think I saw some things. I mean, it all had to do with, the scouting part of it, acquiring players, the type of players you acquire, how the game is taught, at the minor league level. I think, I saw some, we've all had bad coaches coming through, our trip to the big leagues. And I had bad coaches just like every other player has had. And I didn't understand some of their philosophies. And I wanted to make sure when I hired people for player development or scouting that they were, being positive. Again, they were teaching how to play the game and teaching players how to win the game. That was the most important thing. And try to develop players who understood what the goal was every day as an organization and went out there to try to achieve it.
Longtime listeners of this show are going to think that this is a direct quote from me, but these are your words from that article. The game now is getting so heavily loaded with research and development. You got to remember you have to have boots on the ground, and I think maybe they overlook that. When you're dealing with human beings, man, you can't go 100% science. You can't. They're human beings. They're unpredictable. You can't extrapolate their behavior and turn it into numbers. You just can't do it. Numbers don't measure what's in a guy's soul. Analytically, I don't know where Keith Hernandez would measure now. Did he have a launch angle? How was his exit velocity? But I'll tell you what, the man played the game with style. He played it to win. I don't believe any defensive metrics because they don't tell me about range. It takes eyeballs to measure defensive prowess, and Keith had it in spades. So my question based on that, and I agree 1,000%, and I've been an advocate for this for years. You're sitting down with an interview from me. I want to hire you as my GM. My question is, what percentage mix dollar-wise would you allocate to scouting, and what percentage would you allocate to analytics and IT?
Well, I'll say one thing. I think zero analytics in our game is as big or bigger mistake than 100% analytics. My point has always been you have to have a mix. I don't know what the proper percentage is, but you have to have a mix of players, evaluators who know what it takes to be successful at the major league level. And sometimes it's hard to articulate that numerically. If you look at a guy like Keith Hernandez, he was a below-average runner. He had below-average arm strength. He had, back then he had average power, but he was an off-the-chart defender and an off-the-chart hitter and an off-the-chart leader. And so he had 3 pluses out of probably the 6 or 7 categories that we look at. And numbers wouldn't identify his true strength 100%. I mean, how do you put a number on a guy that comes to the park with the flu? I remember we were in Montreal one day. Ron Darling was sick as hell, had 103-degree fever. He's in the training room wrapped in towels with ice. Goes out, pitches 7 innings. We get the win. Never mentions it. 5 days later, he's back out there again. Never mentioned it. Now, how do you numerically put a number on that kind of toughness and that kind of unselfishness? It's impossible to do. You have to have people who are around players that watch them, especially when they're struggling. It's July. A kid's 1 for 12, 1 for 15. He's an A-ball. He's getting the bat shoved up as you know what. And you see him out there busting his ass to be successful. Those are the type of things that I don't think numbers can quantify. or identify. I really don't. But there are value to numbers. Numbers don't lie in a lot of categories. They don't. And so that the analytics part of it is here to stay, and I agree, it should be here to stay. But there has to be some sort of eyeball evaluation based on players' experience or a scout's experience or development people's experience to evaluate what kind of player that's going to be when he's tired and sore, bad road trip, bad umpiring, bad weather, bad travel, whatever it is. They overcome that, and they still manage to win the game.
Totally agree. And, obviously I coached travel, not nowhere near the same, but you could tell what kids would react in certain positions just by looking at them, the way they carry themselves on a field, that I don't care if a kid was hitting 345, he might hit 345. A bulk of those hits come early in the game when the game's not on the line. But when the game's on the line, all of a sudden that bat gets gripped tighter, and it's not the same. And granted, you can quantify that by drilling down the numbers, but you could also tell sometimes. You could sometimes just in the look in a player's eyes know whether he's going to be able to handle certain situations or not. And that goes as they get older as well. So it's something you can catch early on. Before we move on to the ripple effect that COVID-19 is going to have on the great game of baseball, let's talk about something that really has been pushed to the back burner because, spring training being closed down and now the uncertainty of when the season's going to open. We have not heard anything about the Houston Astros sign stealing scandal since all this took place. We had Brett Boone on one of our Facebook Live editions last week, and we asked him about it, and he gave me a surprising answer. And I guess after he said it, I kind of thought, hey, that's a really good point. Brett Boone said that any team that would be out on a field would be so onto that, garbage can hitting so quickly that the next batter would have been drilled. He said, so he doesn't buy that this went on a full season and no one knew about it and people weren't being drilled. He said, listen, the conspiracy theory about the buzzers, he said, that might be something different because that's not outward and players wouldn't have been on to that. He said, but I could see when guys at the plate, when they're on second base trying to steal signs, I see it. So what's your take on the Astros sign stealing scandal?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron because players can't keep their mouths shut. I was a player. Everybody talks, and if there's something going on, if a player goes down in the minor leagues, he's going to tell everybody in the minor leagues, hey, the guys in the big leagues are cheating. Our guy gets traded to another club. I mean, I'm not buying that it's as widespread as they're saying, but I do think it did exist. I think that they were guilty. The players have even admitted as much. But, back in the 80s, hey, we did everything we could to steal signs. I think the statute of limitations is run on this, so I can make some admissions here. I played with some guys that were the best, and we used to have a TV. I'm not going to say which city it was. We had a TV in the tunnel next to the dugout, and it had the game broadcast on. It wasn't a dedicated camera in center field. And we had a player who was one of the most highly respected players I ever played with. He could go down the tunnel with a man on second, and after 3 pitches, he'd come back and say, first sign after 2, or second sign, or first sign after 3. And the runner on second base, the next time somebody got on second, they look in there and they say, okay, first sign after 2, and the catcher goes 1, 2, 3, okay, here comes a slider. If it's a fastball, the guy would take his lead and look straight in at the plate. If it was a breaking ball, he'd take a couple of steps off the base and look over his shoulder at the outfielders. That was breaking ball. Fastball, look straight in, breaking ball. Hey, but if you're dumb enough to have your sign stealable, then you get what you deserve. And I don't think looking at a game broadcast is cheating. I mean, but if you have a dedicated camera in center field that's doing nothing but filming the catcher, and you have a guy out there with electronics relaying that into the dugout or into the clubhouse, and that's being relayed to a hitter, that's a no-no. That's going way too far. And if they're doing that, then they're guilty and they should be punished.
Yeah, they have been punished. A lot of managers lost their jobs over this. Let's talk about the effect of the pandemic on the game. There are various talks going on. Some include total realignment to reduce the amount of travel. So let's start with that. Should baseball realign for one season just for the sake of getting games in? Or should they wait until they can actually, play the way the league alignment is?
I think they ought to play as soon as possible, and I think the 3-10-team alignment is very good. I like that. I think it's very good. I do think, though, they need to play in their home ballparks, because I've already seen high-profile players like Mike Trout and players of that caliber come out and say, listen, we don't want to go to Arizona or Florida for the entire season and be away from our families, and that's reasonable. That's a reasonable request. And I think if it's done correctly, with the support of the medical experts and the municipalities where they play, I think it's a thing that can be done. So I think the 3-team, the West, Central, East, they just play within their division. They start July 4th, they go through October 3rd, say that's 13 weeks. You can play between 100 and 110 games. And to me, that's a legitimate season. My rookie year in the big leagues, we played, I think, 110 games.
Yeah,
because of the strike. Right. The strike at 81.
110 games is totally legit for sure.
And that seems,
I agree. I think if you play 50 games, you don't have the opportunity to weed out the pretenders. But 100 games, 110 games, nobody pretends through 110 games.
And that doesn't push it past where you would need to play in a warm location. Like if it's ending there, you still can play in those home for the postseason.
For postseason, right?
Yeah,
that's what it would do.
Well, I'd say I would be in favor of playing, extended playoffs with some neutral site consideration. I don't have a problem with that. Obviously football's done it. It hasn't affected them.
Right.
But I think if they want to go into October, late October, and now you're playing games in mid-November, extended playoff, the last thing you want to be is at Wrigley Field, and it's 12, or it's snowing,
right, exactly.
Or it's raining,
right. It takes from someone who played there. It's Eddie from experience.
From personal experience, right. Trust me. So I think that the things I'm hearing are sound. The issues I see, though, are financial. I mean, the players are going to have to take a pay cut. TV money only pays, 60% of their salaries?
Right.
So they can't go in expecting to make 100% of their salary prorated over the shortened season. But I think that's something they would do. Players have to be chomping at the bit. And the way salaries are now, 60% of a lot is a lot better than 100% enough. So, and I think the other thing they can work out is, revenue sharing, things of that nature, luxury tax considerations, things like that. So I think it's doable. I think the union is Tony Clark has done a good job. The commissioner is a brilliant guy. And, brilliant minds get together, and it's good for everybody to get this game going again. So, I think they'll work it out, and I think it'll be a success. I really do.
So all of the plans include playing to empty stadiums. As a former player, what effect on actual gameplay do you think that would have? And the only, benchmark we can look to was when in 2016 the Orioles played the White Sox at Camden Yards to empty stadium due to the unrest that was going on in Baltimore at the time.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of interesting dynamics. If you look at that game in Baltimore, I think it was under 2 hours. It was the fastest game of the year. Why? I have no idea. But let me tell you something. When you're playing in front of 2,000 people at Shea, you can hear that guy in the green seat saying, "You're ready, you suck." That can be tough. But when there's 50,000 there, you don't hear anything. It's just like, with the Jets roaring over and 50,000 people, you don't hear anything. I had trouble hearing Keith yelling at me from first base. So, in a lot of ways, playing in front of 50,000 people is easier than playing in front of nobody, and it'll be an interesting dynamic. But again, players are very adaptable. They're very flexible. They're good on their feet. And then, one thing about athletics, it's not, the movies. You don't have a script and another take or whatever. It's live. So you have to think and you have to act on your feet in real time. And I think players will adapt to it.
So one of the things that we have not heard or seen written about or anyone asking about is the effect that this is going to have on the minor leagues. What happens to a minor league system, one which has already come under attack from Commissioner Manfred because he was looking to eliminate a bunch of teams to begin with, the economic impact this is going to have on the minor league system, which eventually will affect players coming up. What do you see happening this year to the minors?
That's a huge issue because, if your second baseman and your shortstop collide and they both hurt themselves, and there's no minor league games going on, you better have players ready to play. They're going to have to expand the rosters, have like taxi squads, things of that nature. But I think the minors. I was a minor league director for 3 years. Okay, I had 7 full season minor league teams. And let's face it, there's some below average operators operating minor league baseball teams. You know, when you go into Scout, you go into Grand Rapids, Michigan, or you go into Cedar Rapids, Iowa, or South Bend, or Lancaster, California, or Oklahoma City, you know, especially at the lower levels, you might go in there and have 25-man roster with 24 guys you know damn well are never going to sniff the big leagues, ever. You might have that one guy and 24 supporting actors and get him there. You know, there's a lot of, I always felt there's way too many players in the minor leagues now. You know, when I signed in 1977 with Texas, we had a rookie club in Sarasota. We had an A club in Asheville, North Carolina. We had a AA team in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had a AAA team in Tucson, Arizona. Okay, and I was a college senior, so if I didn't make the next level the next year, I was gone. You know, now you have clubs with multiple A clubs. You know, everybody has one AA, one AAA, but they might have 3 A clubs, low A, high A. They might be in the South Atlantic League and the Carolina League or the California League with 2 or 3 teams. And then at the rookie level, you'll have short season. You'll have rookie ball. You know, I'm all in favor of paring down the minor leagues from, say, what is it now, 160 teams to 140, say, you know, or 120. Eliminate 40 teams. Now, somebody's going to take a hit, obviously. They pay good money. My feelings, I empathize with those people. What people pay for minor league teams these days is astronomical. But it's going to help it on several fronts. Number one, they're going to cut the season down. Instead of playing 140 games, they play 120 games. You know, so or 120 games. Cut out 20 games. So during the season, you know, every operator you talk to, season ticket holders all hate Monday and Tuesday night games. They're paying for tickets they never use. So if you have every Monday or Tuesday off, season ticket holders are happy. You can even charge them the same prices if they're paying for 140 games. And you know what? The travel's going to get better. The scheduling will be much better. There are some horrific schedules in minor league baseball. Let me tell you something. When you play, I remember we had a team in Charleston, South Carolina, low A club, young kids. We had our schedule. We had 60 days in a row. 60. Wow. There's no union down there to limit 20 games at a time. Right. And so, and their comeback was, well, we'll have rainouts. Oh, geez, that's great. You know, they call the game at 9:30 at night, and that's your day off in those 2 months. You know. And then you're on a bus. So I think it'll be better scheduling. It'll be much better standards because you're going to eliminate a significant portion of teams that really don't deserve to have a professional team. And I'll say it because I'm not in the game anymore and I don't care. Because it's the truth. People in the game won't say it, and I understand why. But there are certain franchises in the minor leagues that don't deserve to be in professional baseball. And I think because of this, a lot of them are going to go away due to attrition because of the economics, you know, and not going to be able to withstand this tremendous hit, you know, the operating in the ballpark until this. So I think we will see that reduction. And you can't play without fans. That's the only income they have. Exactly. So, Ed, we appreciate your time today. We really appreciate talking baseball. It's a nice little break from the news, and hope you stay healthy and hope you sell a lot of houses out there in Arizona. and hope your boss doesn't release you. Hey, any referrals would be greatly appreciated. You got it. Ed Lynch, former New York Met. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk to Russ Cohn, so keep it tuned right here.
Since 1952, Solomon's Jewelers has been the name to trust on Long Island for jewelry. Solomon's Jewelers is a 60-year-old family-owned business run by jewelry professionals and Gemological Institute of America graduates. 3 generations of experience let them offer you certified appraisals. They have a highly skilled design, repair, and watchmaker staff on premises for all your restyling needs. Solomon Jewelers offers a wide variety of magnificent designer couture jewelry, name brand watches, and certified diamonds. Solomon Jewelers pride themselves on having the best customer service and support in the jewelry industry. They're there with 60 years of experience behind them to help educate and guide you through every step of your jewelry purchase. Solomon Jewelers has 2 convenient locations to serve Long Island's jewelry needs. 74 Minetto Hill Plaza, Plainview, New York, or 1030 Willis Avenue, Albertston, New York. Visit them on the web at www.solomonjewelers.com. Solomon Jewelers, serving Long Island since 1952.
Since 1964, Prince Associates' commitment has been to provide customers with the best insurance value and service available while maintaining the highest ethical standards and credibility with their clients, carriers, and the public. Prince Associates Incorporated is an independent insurance agency with a broad range of commercial, personal, life, and health products. Prince Associates has aligned themselves with some of the finest carriers to deliver these products to you. So whether you're a business or an individual, Prince Associates can help. Please visit them on the web at princeins.com for an online quote or call them at 516-822-6550. Tell them Mark and AJ sent you. Prince Associates, meeting your every insurance need since 1964.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman with you this Sunday evening. We also streaming live over Facebook Live. When I was a kid, there was a program called Romper Room. And at the end of Romper Room, there was this lady, I think her name was Miss Elaine or something, and she had this like little fake mirror. And she would say, I see, and she would just say random names, and obviously there'd be a Paula or Jimmy or Tommy at home.
I know where this is going.
So with the Facebook Live app, I see David is watching, Paula is watching, Steve is watching, Robert Solomon is watching. I actually see you. Unfortunately, getting the live comments onto the screen has been a little bit of an issue today. Barry Shelley had a great question, which we didn't get to. Ed, he wanted to know, how does he feel about them canceling the Hall of Fame inductions in Cooperstown? Interesting that Jeter is going to have to wait a year, and so there'll be more the following year. So I don't know what people have bought tickets or hotel, that made those plans so far in advance, knowing that was going to be Jeter's induction. Now what happens for next year?
Yeah, you couldn't even get a hotel in a radius.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's interesting. So it's now time for the NHL Report with Russ Cohen. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with the rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey is embracing the nostalgia of those old tabletop games and designed a whole new board for the future. Handcrafted with designer woods, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more and start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a center ice logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. Definitely, if you're home, it fits in with the social distancing requirements, because someone will be on the other side of the table, and it is absolutely great stuff. So good stuff. And Mark had a good question also. What catcher did he enjoy throwing to the most? I would have to say it had to be the kid. Maybe not. It could have been Barry Lyons. It could have been Ed Hearn. It could have been a number of them. So good question by him, and hopefully next week we'll get those kinks worked out. All right, Russ. So, of all the sports, baseball, it's a little far off because they're going to have to get their camps going, and they're going to have to really come up with scheduling and the realignment. Hockey, from what we're hearing, might be a little closer, right? What's the latest you're hearing?
Yeah, hockey's definitely closer. It looks like, May 15th will be the date that small groups for a lot of the teams will be allowed back in their facilities. So that's going to be the start of it. We're also hearing that, and this is, again, it's not going to happen tomorrow because there's a Board of Governors meeting, and they're probably going to have to decide on the punishment for the Arizona Coyotes for secretly testing players. After that happens, then they'll be able to vote for the draft. That's expected to pass, though, even though you hear bitching from owners. Gary Bettman wants it, and clearly the broadcast partners want it. So I doubt there'll be any issue with that. So that will probably happen that first week in June, sometime then, early June. And then, we'll be looking at games probably middle to end of June if everything goes right with the small groups and everything else. And it looks like, from what Larry Brooks is writing, they're going to pick 4 places out of 12. I like that because, again, to me, there was no reason to build in travel. When you build in travel, you're adding risk, especially if cities were to become hotspots again and you can't get in there for some reason. You get stuck on a plane. So that's good. I'm hearing a lot of different places. Minnesota has a lot of rinks. maybe they go there. There was another place with multiple rinks now that's sort of escaping me, but I don't think it'll be any place, like LA, New York, Philly. It's not going to be any of those cities. I don't think it'll be Toronto. I'm not even sure it'll be in Canada, but certainly there's places in Canada with multiple rinks, but I think it's going to end up being some place in the U.S. or maybe 2 cities in the U.S. where they have multiple rinks to work with.
Now, what are your thoughts on jumping right into the playoffs or finishing the season with maybe a 7 through 10 playoff to see who's making the tournament?
I hate finishing the season with that 7 through 10 because, teams like the Sabres and the Ducks don't really deserve to make it. Mm-hmm. I'm for extending the playoffs to add 2 teams in the East and the West that weren't there before, let them play it out and work their way in. So a team like the Rangers would make it. Teams that were close, like legitimately close. Like I think, you could have looked at it at one point, and before Shesterkin went down, it looked like the Rangers were going to make it. Where the Sabres and Anaheim Ducks never had a chance. Montreal never had a chance. There would be too many fluky teams in it otherwise.
So, later on in the show, we're going to have one of the Florida Panthers on the show, and they were basically 3 points out with 1 game in hand of the wild card spot. Are they a team you put in there?
They would be on the bubble because it would depend on how they're going to determine it. Are they going to roll it back to 68 games? So they'd be on the bubble. But, deservedly so because, again, they were close. Right. So that's going to depend on that factor, whether they play a few more games to even it out or they just roll it back to 68. Nobody knows for sure. Me personally, I'm just in favor of going straight into the playoffs simply because I don't think you want to waste time with this. There's a lot of things you have to get done to even get the season to start remotely on time next year. And I know they want to have a full season. Whether they have a full season with fans, that's a whole other discussion.
You mentioned starting or not wasting time. Is there any hurry to get the season in before July 1st when we know that the contracts are expiring, free agents are done with their contracts?
Well, I mean, there's nothing they can do. They won't be able to get a season in by July 1st. Mm-hmm. They just want to get the draft in by then so you don't have to worry about the scouts' contracts and management contracts. As far as free agent contracts, no, I don't think they're going to be able to do anything about that. I think the season will still end up running until late August, something like that. And then they would get, a month or so off. Then there would be free agency. And while they're off, and then you try and start up again at some point. So I don't like the December startup time simply because there's talk of that maybe when the virus has that reoccurrence, it could be in that month. I think they're better either starting it 2 months early so they could either work in a break or have a looseness in the schedule then so they wouldn't have to cancel much, or start in January because there is that talk that it's possible that there can be vaccines, millions of vaccines available in January. That's the best case scenario. But if that were to happen, then you could have it with fans too. So would the NHL start the season without fans or would they wait for fans? That's another big question.
That is a huge question as well. All right, so last question before we let you go. We know there's been tremendous buzz with a Russian goaltender in New York, but there might be more buzz the following season with another Russian goaltender coming across town to the Islanders. So what are you hearing now about their Russian goalie?
Well, it's a big holdup because there's a couple things at play. Because the Islanders were not giving assurances to Sorokin, Babayev, who's basically the agent for Sorokin, was going to make and probably did and probably has another advance to Siska to see if they can get more than, I think he got around 1.5, a little over $2 million with bonuses last year. If he can get more money out of them, because that's right now where they're at. He's not jumping on a plane and coming here yet. And I think he's looking for the backup job. I think those are the assurances. I don't know that for sure. That hasn't been spelled out for me, but I think that's what it is. So it's not a slam dunk. And remember, he doesn't want to go to Bridgeport if he can make over $2 million as a goalie in the KHL. He doesn't want to make $70,000. So I think that's really where they're at. And if they feel like on their side, if Babayev and Sorokin feel like at some point he's not going to get a fair shake, they may ask the Islanders to try and trade his rights. And then you might see that happen at the draft if, if Lou doesn't acquiesce a little bit.
Interesting stuff. And we know how hardball Lou can be. So it would be an interesting showdown come draft day. All right, Russ, thanks so much. We'll speak to you next week. Actually, 2 weeks. Next week, we're off for Mother's Day. Russ Cohen here each and every week, with the exception of next week with the NHL Report. It's time now for the Disaster Cleanup Services NBA Report with Chaim Tauber. If your property has been affected by water or fire damage, look no further than the professionals at Disaster Cleanup Services. Independently owned and operated, Disaster Cleanup Services is a tri-state leader in property damage cleanup, specializing in water and fire damage restoration, mold remediation, sewage cleanup, and most importantly right now, these days, decontamination, lead and asbestos abatement, and much more. For more information, visit their website, www.4disasters.com. Call today, mention Sports Talk for a free in-home inspection at 1-800-297-WATER. That's 1-800-297-9283. Disasters happen. Let them clean it up. All right, Chaim, one of the things that came out this week is that the NBA is, questioning, what impact COVID would have for older staffers, meaning general managers and some of the coaches who are in that prime, area that are most susceptible to COVID. What effect do you think that's going to have on when and if the NBA season returns?
Oh, it's going to have a huge effect. Obviously, and the disclaimer with everything is that everything's up in the air, nothing's really determined. Everybody's trying to piece this out as they go along. But no, several GMs have said, listen, I have to determine what is considered essential and non-essential personnel. If you're on the medical staff, how many trainers are really necessary for the team, how many are not. It's not just the coaches and the general managers. The general managers, in all likelihood, most of them won't be attending the games. It's not something that they could really risk. But if you're looking at some of the older coaches as well.
Right.
You look at Greg Popovich. You look at guys who, realistically, they can't be on the bench. They can't face that kind of exposure. It's going to lead to all kinds of issues, because if you're the San Antonio Spurs and you're forced to play without your head coach, you have a very legitimate gripe as the legitimacy of the season in terms of having a level playing field and a fair one, as opposed to, a team coached by Luke Walton, who was born in, I think, 1980. It's going to, there are all kinds of logistical nightmares, and this is one that the league, again, is going to have to try to figure out. And there's going to be a serious reduction in terms of staff allowed when and should this thing start back up again. Likely just one real coach on the bench, maybe a little more in practice if it's more, training facilities are more spread out. But, there are going to be some real hoops to jump through to try to figure this thing out.
All right, we did this with John Coppinger because Facebook and Twitter have all been abuzz with your best ever players you've seen. So you are younger than I am, so it'd be interesting to see where you and I have similarities and where you and I are different. Give me your best 5 players. We'll go position by position. So best center you ever saw in your lifetime.
Most dominant was Shaq, but the best skill wise, I got to give to Hakeem.
Hakeem, all right. What about you, Rye?
I would say Shaq, and depending on if you're counting him at the power forward, Tim Duncan.
Okay, so I saw Wilt Chamberlain. For me, it was between Wilt and Kareem, but I went with Wilt. All right, let's go forwards. Give me your 2 forwards.
2 forwards, again, I don't really know how it is you want to rank Tim Duncan, whether he's a center or a forward. But LeBron James is a must. And it's that second one that's real tough. I'm torn between. I'm really torn between Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett.
Nice.
I'm sorry. I meant Kevin Durant. Not Garnett.
Okay, so obviously I went with LeBron, but there's a strong case for me for Dr. J and Bird. But I went with LeBron and I went with Duncan as well. So interesting. Dr. J, I feel horrible leaving him off, but if we're going that way, we had to go with LeBron. All right, give me your point guard.
Point guard. If we were just going 2 guards, my answer would be different. But if it's just a point guard, I got to give it to Steph. The guy's changed the game. Man, I hate how modern and young my team is, but Steph's already at the point guard.
Well, it's interesting because I went with Magic, but Steph was right on his heels. So what about you? We got
I'm thinking of giving a different answer. What about CP3? He's really been dominant my whole watching of the NBA career, so I'll go CP3.
Interesting. No love for Stockton at all from anybody.
No, I mean, and we have a little bit of a talk about The Last Dance to do if we can.
No,
we have any time.
No, we got 2
might
minutes.
not.
All right, let's go with the shooting guard to wrap it up.
I can't say anybody but Michael, can I?
No, I don't think anybody can, right?
I didn't see him play, so Kobe.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay. And you know what? What I will say is that if it was just 2 guards rather than a point guard and a shooting guard, I am happy to bump off Steph Curry and make it Michael and Kobe as my 2 guards.
Really, I would say so. All right, Chaim Tauber here each and every week with the NBA. We'll have to come up with a different list for next week until we get some hard stuff going on here. You know, either guys going back to mini camps or something. Shout out to a couple people out watching in the chat room. Ryan Thompson, former New York Met, out there to say hi to him. Mark Marinello throwing in some really good comments in there. Barry Shelley too. Keep them coming. We are seeing them. We just can't get them on the screen. We still have our NFL report, and then we have Brian Boyle of the Florida Panthers on the other side of the break. So keep it tuned right here. We will get to all your questions if you put them there. We like the interactiveness of the chat. I'm
enjoying engaging in the chat.
Yeah, well, it is a good component. It's something we've missed over the years. Unfortunately, there's something that is not allowing me to put it up on the screen, but we will read them. If there's a question and we see it while the guest is on, we'll definitely get to it. So we appreciate it. Also, coming up this week on the Facebook Live during the week, we have a Bad News Bears reunion show and a Slap Shot reunion show. And, of course, Friday afternoon, the collectibles with Cardboard Memories, Scott Stamell also. So those are things you can look forward to during the week. All right, keep it tuned right here on the side of the break.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the preceding program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
For every occasion, make it from the heart with a special gift from Ford's Jewelers.
From the heart, from the start, for the one who's a true work of art. Together or far apart, make it from the heart.
For an endless selection of gifts from the heart, see Ford's Jewelers with watches from Omega, Tag Heuer, and over 30 other top brands. A huge selection of certified diamonds at the guaranteed lowest prices. Jewelry designs by Scott K, Simon G, and many others. Fine gifts and accessories by Lennox, Swarovski, Yadro, and more. For fine diamonds, jewelry, watches, and gifts at amazing savings, see Ford's Jewelers.
Together or far apart, make it from the heart.
For every occasion, see Ford's Jewelers, New Jersey's legendary jeweler, 449 New Brunswick Avenue in Ford's.
The Herman Singh Community Radio Show is on Bali 540 AM every Saturday morning at 9. With over 2 decades of service to the tri-state area, including announcements, exclusive events, and all your favorite music, the Herman Singh Community Radio Show Saturday mornings from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. To contact the Herman Singh Community Radio Show for a special request or announcement, call 718-805-4900. That's 718-805-4900. The Herman Singh Community Radio Show on Bali 540 AM. For all your real estate needs, call 718-805-4900.
During this unprecedented time in New Jersey, it is important to stay safe and healthy in all areas of your life. At 800 Gambler, we realize that social distancing can lead to increased time spent with online gambling due to feelings of isolation, loneliness, and boredom. Our helpline remains available 24 hours per day, 7 days per week to provide support, treatment, and hope to those in need. If you or someone you know is struggling with or living with someone who has a gambling problem and wants help, call us today at 800-GAMBLER or visit us at www.800gambler.org. We remain a phone call or click away. You're never alone. This message sponsored by the Council on Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
off a weekend of watching sports by talking about it with Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter on Sports Talk New York. All the intelligent conversation, insightful interviews, and reporters covering every story is right here on 540 AM from 7 to 8:30 Sunday nights. Check out sportstalknylive.com for previews of upcoming guests and visit their Facebook page for a chance to win prizes. Sports Talk New York, Sunday nights from 7 to 8:30 on 540 AM.
In the wake of the coronavirus, many schools and colleges are utilizing distance learning. While distance learning may be the best way to keep students and school staff safe, students and educators alike will surely miss the personal interactions and social opportunities that take place in regular school settings. Here are some ways to make the most of distance learning. First of all, stay on a schedule. It's easy to put things off when you work from home. Get up, get dressed, and keep regular lunch breaks. Make time for online social interactions. Students can create study groups that can meet online to review lessons and ask questions. Get up and move. Take a break every hour to take a walk around the house. Drink some water and wash your hands. Stay alert and practice healthy habits. Eat dinner as a family. Talk about what you learned each day. Keep a regular sleep schedule. It's easy to get off track and stay up late watching television or playing video games when you don't have to leave the house. Remember, it's still a school day. This message is sponsored by the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hi, I'm Howie Rose, and you're listening to Mark and AJ on 540 Sports Talk New York.
The third baseman, number 11, Mark Rosenman.
Be rolling that out for a few weeks. Right?
I tell you, I play that every time I walk into any room now. Thanks so much to the great Colin Cosell. Interesting also, Howie Rose is now on Twitter. He's gone public with his Twitter handle. Some great stuff from him this week as well. Time now for the NFL Report with Jay Retcher, sponsored by Just Escape LI. Do you and your team have what it takes to race against the clock, using your wits and instincts to complete a mission and escape the room? We all want to escape the room so badly these days. Test your problem-solving skills at Just Escape in Massapequa. Have an experience like no other with fine, fun, and challenging rooms, all varying in difficulty and scare factor. Just Escape is a perfect, unique day out for all ages when we are able to get out. It will be great for corporate and fundraising events, birthday parties, too. Are you up for the challenge? You have the cooperation, creativity, and focus to Just Escape. Trust me, we all need that. We need to use our brain power. So as soon as things open up, please book at justscapeli.com. That's justscapeli.com. How you doing, Jay?
I'm good. Thank you very much. And real quick on Just Escape, they're doing a gift card thing, 20% off some gift card stuff right now. So they've been doing really good stuff there. So make sure you head over to justscapeli.com. It's going to be one of the first things you want to do when everything starts getting back to normal.
Great. All right. So a couple of things. The NFL looks to be back September 10th, Super Bowl February 7th. You think that is still realistic? And do you think those first games will have fans in the seats?
Well, I do think it is realistic. Luckily for the NFL, there's so many other leagues that are going to have to go kind of through the whole process of, all right, getting games back, fans with or without. So I think they're going to be a lot of trial and error for a lot of the other leagues. So whether it's soccer overseas or NHL or NBA here domestically, I think for them, they got a couple of months where they can still look at everything. But I wouldn't be surprised, if the first couple games, if not the whole season, had no fans in the stands. It's definitely going to be a trial and error type thing.
You know, the quarterback carousel has started after the draft. Andy Dalton, obviously a casualty of the draft. He goes to the Cowboys. The Eagles picked Jalen Hurts up as well in the draft, which has generated a lot of post-draft buzz. So let's first start with, Andy Dalton as a backup. Granted, he hasn't done tremendous with Cincinnati, but he is a quality quarterback. Do you think he could be a starter somewhere else? And are you surprised that's where, he is right now? I
think he could be. I know a lot of people talking comparisons, and you know, a guy like Alex Smith is a decent comparison with him. A guy, some winning seasons. I know Dalton wasn't able to secure a playoff victory, but this is still a guy that is a very competent quarterback in the National Football League. So I'm not surprised by it. I think it's a smart move for Dallas. They haven't, you know, I know the deal with Dak. They placed that tag on him, $31 million, I believe it was. So I think eventually they'll get a deal done with Dak. But hey, not a bad thing to have a guy like that, a nice veteran that's been in this league and played some playoff games. It's a smart move, and you're not going to find me lauding many of the Dallas Cowboys transactions, but that's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so I think it's a good move for Jerry and the boys.
Listen, we talk about teams with insurance policies for their quarterbacks, and we talk the Eagles. Obviously, their quarterback their backup took them to a Super Bowl. So the Eagles picked Jalen Hurts. A lot of buzz, like I said, post-draft. Initially, people said, like, what are they, crazy? What do they need him for? With that pick, you know, if Carson Wentz was a stock, would he be a good investment or would it be time to sell?
It's tough with that injury history, man. He's not a guy that I would hitch my wagon to. Do I think he could win some games? Yeah, for sure. I think I hate to be kind of a guy meddling in the middle, but I want to see another full year of Carson Wentz and see if he can stay healthy for a year. I'm still on a wait-and-see approach with him. But I think it's a good move for Philly. I mean, now looking back at it, hey, you can develop some backup quarterbacks like we've seen with Nick Foles, we've seen it with Teddy Bridgewater. Hey, you never know. You see how important draft capital is. We've just seen it a couple weeks ago now. Hey, you never know. You get Jalen Hurts, you get some games in there. Maybe he's your quarterback in the future in 2 years or so if you see more injuries from a guy like Carson Wentz. Or he builds up that stock and then you move him for a, you know, second or third round pick that can help you down the road. I don't think it's a terrible idea because Jalen Hurts has some serious skills, and I think he can do some damage against NFL defenses. I
agree. I think, you know, this is a one of those sleeper picks that, you know, 3-4 years down the road is like, wow, that might have been the most. I think he went 53rd overall, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think he was the 53rd best player in that draft at all.
No,
so,
right.
I mean, it's just
exactly.
crazy to think that.
Right. Exactly. So I think, you know, initially they were kind of trash. Like, what do they need him for? He's never going to play. But, you know, you're right. With Wentz's injury history, I think it is a very astute move. And we could be hearing a lot of that name in the next couple of years for sure. Okay, one of the things. Oh, go ahead, Ryan. You got something?
So I wanted to ask a question about Joe Judge and his relationship with Daniel Jones and kind of juxtapose it to the way that the Arizona Cardinals went out of their way to hire Cliff Kingsbury so that they could attach him with Kyler Murray. So that's, you know, how it's a copycat league. Teams want to, you know, see what someone else is doing, do it the right way. But with a team like that is attached it in that way, do you think that that's really the way to go? Or do you agree that the Giants are maybe just trying to find someone to build the whole program?
Yeah, I think there's more than one way to do it. And you could see with what the Cardinals did. You bring in Kingsbury and you go, yeah, even though we just drafted Josh Rosen in the first round last year, you have an opportunity to draft somebody so athletically gifted as in Kyler Murray. But yeah, I think with the Giants, they're looking to build something like the Patriots have, where it's the Giants way, just like it was the Patriots way. So Joe Judge, you're planning on a guy like that, kind of resetting everything, kind of back to those old school Giants ways of the 80s, where everything was kind of done the certain type of way. The Giants have gotten away from that a couple years. Obviously Odell Beckham's kind of the poster child for that, but you kind of think, like my grandfather who passed away 10 years ago, he probably wouldn't have been a big Odell Beckham Jr. fan, even though he was a diehard Giant fan. So I think you're trying to get back to some of those ways where Joe Judge is instilling the right way to do things on and off the field.
And then how much do you think it'll help that the personalities of a guy like Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley will make that easier for him?
I love Saquon. I love that he's kind of just the face and he's kind of taken on just being, Mr. New York, one of those guys you look at as some of the best athletes in the biggest city in the world. So I think that's great. I think Daniel Jones, I still think, you got to learn about this kid. He's got that kind of quiet demeanor. He's got that kind of sheepish look sometimes. And, of course, you're going to always compare him to Eli Manning. He almost had that aloof style about him where sometimes it didn't even seem like he knew what was going on, but at times he was often the smartest guy on the field. So time will tell with a guy like Daniel Jones. I still think the jury's out a little bit. We'll see how he can do next year. But, yeah, Saquon Barkley, that's a perfect guy to have as a leader of your franchise. And if that's the guy kind of echoing the message from Joe Judge, I think the Giants are going to be in good shape.
A couple of things from the chat room. First off, thanks to Barry Shelley. He's basically sharing this as a watch party on his Facebook page. But Mark Marinello has a really good question for you. Who's going to be the Patriots' next quarterback this season? And what will be the pressure on the guy who succeeds is the next quarterback after Tom Brady?
Well, it's funny. I was on the Jake Fromm to the Patriots bandwagon for a while there because I felt like his skill set coming out of college very similar to a guy like Tom Brady. But he went to Buffalo, and I think it'll only be a matter of time before you see Jake Fromm taking over for Josh Allen. I know it's a little bit crazy, but all right, back to the Patriots. But yeah, from what I'm hearing, guys, they're very confident in Jarrett Stidham. And I think in a situation like this where it's us against the world type of mentality, I think it's a little bit easier in that sense because it's almost like the Patriots are the ones that, hey, this is our decision. We could have done a multitude of other things, whether it's Andy Dalton or Cam Newton or trading up for a quarterback or doing a whole bunch of things, but they're going with Jarrett Stidham. So us against the world mentality, I think, can actually help them out. And I think that can alleviate some of the pressure of having those high expectations that we're used to having for the Patriots.
And also, it's almost like, the Marty Brodeur, was he a great goaltender or was he a product of the system? So we will see what, Belichick meant to Brady. And we'll see, Tom Brady will be with a different team, how great Brady is. So that's an interesting thing that's going to play out this season. All right, we got a minute before we have to let you go. So we've been high on these lists all night long. Give me the best quarterback, running back, and wide receiver that you saw perform in your lifetime.
Oh, that's awesome. I was so excited about this question. Okay, my two answers are going to be kind of obvious. My other one's kind of like a video game answer. The best quarterback, and not, all right, Mark, but the most talented quarterback I've ever seen in my life is Michael Vick. A guy that could just stand at the line of scrimmage and flip the ball 50 yards down the field like it was nothing. And those running days when he was in Atlanta against the Giants, like, that's video game stuff. I mean, it's crazy. Running back, Barry Sanders, easily, because my thing with great players is if you do what you do best against the other great players, like he did against the John Lynches and Derek Brookses of the world, that's why you're the GOAT in my eyes. And then Jerry Rice. You want to talk about the combination of a true professional. He had that ease to his game, kind of like Michael Jordan, where it was just like everybody else could be trying as hard as they can and run as hard as they can, but they won't be able to catch that guy or look as good doing it. So those are my three, Vic, Sanders, and Jerry Rice.
Nice. So unfortunately, as much as it pained me, I had to go with Brady as the quarterback. You talked about ease and movement and grace. So I had to go with Walter Payton as my my running back, and then Rice, my wide receiver as well. All right. We appreciate it as always, Jay. We'll speak to you in 2 weeks. Next week, no show due to Mother's Day. So we'll speak to you in 2 weeks. Jay Retcher with the NFL Report. We're going to take a quick break on the other side of the commercial. We're waiting for Brian Boyle to call in. So keep it tuned right here, 540 AM Sports Talk New York.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman with you this Sunday evening, and we are streaming over Facebook Live, something we just started doing recently. We like it. Lots of people out there in the chat room. You say hi to Mark Herman, the great writer, and Paul Mascu is out there as well. And again, thanks Barry Shelley sharing it on his Facebook Watch page as well. So you know what? I'm also taking a lot of grief because people can see me. I'm getting text messages. What am I, the vice president, out in public without a face mask? But Ryan Sherman is 7 feet away from me, and Rick, the board op, is 7 feet away from me. And yes, this is not, the hospital. There was no memo. We are definitely practicing social distancing, so that's not a thing here. So I don't want to be called out.
No, yeah, we definitely take it seriously here.
We took it, we basically wiped everything down. So we're waiting on Brian Boyle. So we didn't get your best quarterback, wide receiver, and running back.
I think it would be really, really hard for me not to go with Brady with my lifetime. I mean, I'm 26 and he has just dominated my entire life. So I'll go Brady. With a wide receiver. I don't know, someone maybe like more recent. I would say DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's incredible. You throw anything near him, he'll just grab it. Running back, maybe LT. He was just great. I'll go with him. I don't know.
It's not a bad 3. It's interesting because that's been showing up a lot on these social media feeds, and it gets people thinking. So it's pretty cool. It's we all have our list. And when they ask you for your favorites as opposed to the best. It changes the conversation. Joining us now is the man who was a first-round draft pick of the Los Angeles Kings when they took him in the 2003 NHL draft. He played 4 seasons in Boston College before making his NHL debut on February 2nd, 2008. He scored his first career NHL goal that night against Hall of Fame goalie Martin Brodeur. He scored 3 goals in his first 4 games. He would go on to play for the New York Rangers, Tampa Bay Lightning, Toronto Maple Leafs, New Jersey Devils, Nashville Predators, and currently is a member of the Florida Panthers. He has played in over 800 games in the NHL, has been an all-star, was the winner of the Bill Masterson Trophy, which is awarded annually to the NHL's player who best exemplifies the qualities of perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to ice hockey. Longtime listeners to this show know that whenever I'm asked who is my favorite player to cover in any sport, his name is always at the top of the list. It is a pleasure to welcome one of the most humble, honest, and sincere athletes you will ever meet in any game, the one and only Brian Boyle to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that introduction. That was very nice of you.
Well, you know what? Having been around you, through your entire Ranger career, and people know it because, there's been so many Brian Boyle stories I've told over the years on this station. So first and foremost, how are you and your family doing during these trying times?
Oh, we're great. It's it was an opportunity for us. We had a bit of excitement on I guess March the 20th, I believe it was. We had to kind of rush back home to Boston from Florida. We're down in Fort Lauderdale, and get my son operated on quickly. He was had a little infection in his mouth and was kind of bleeding a little bit. So we got right into Boston Children's. They were unbelievable, and we kind of hunkered down in just south of Boston in our home in Hingham for 5.5 weeks, and then on Friday we got in the flight. Now we're re-quarantining down here in Fort Lauderdale for a couple of weeks, kind of staying away from everybody. But the weather's a bit nicer, and hopefully we get to start back up in a couple of weeks with some informal stuff. So that's kind of what I've been doing, like pretty much like everybody else, trying to stay safe, stay responsible, help to try to end this as quick as possible. Unfortunately, we did have to travel, but that was out of necessity, and now we're hunkered down again.
And Declan's doing okay?
He's doing great. Yeah, thank you. He's he had some adult teeth pop in at 4 years old, and they weren't quite where they were supposed to be. They got a little infected. He bumped his chin playing some baseball. I guess 4-year-olds play baseball down here in Florida, so we had him on the ball field. He tripped and fell, and then a couple weeks later, it kind of got worse and worse. But fortunate for us, we got him taken care of, and everything's been really good. He's in a great mood. He's happy to be back down here. Do a little pool, so kids are great.
So I remember you telling me once that your love for hockey went back to when you were 2 years old, as you would wake up as a 2-year-old to watch the hockey highlights on ESPN. You've been on skates since you were 3 back at the Pilgrim Arena. So if my math is correct, that's 32 years that hockey has played a prominent role in your life. You were close to returning to the lineup after dealing with the upper body injury. So I have to imagine now that you're able to get back on the ice again, that you must be like a caged tiger. What's it been like for you since the NHL officially paused the 2019-20 season back on March 12th?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I watched a replay of us playing. I was in Tampa. We were playing the Blackhawks. It was Game 5, a game I obviously lost. And I ended up watching that whole game, and then part of Game 6, which was actually a deciding game that we lost a cup final. 2 games of which I never thought I'd ever watch again. And you know what I did, just because I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to watch the game, and that's how much I miss it, really. I mean, if there's any opportunity for us as players to play, it doesn't really matter when it is. We don't care if we lose a summer, if we don't get really much of an off season because we're going to start next year. mean, we love to play, and it's such a grind that it's got to be obvious that every guy in this league loves to play, and we're dying to get back at it because, I mean, it's just the way it ended too. It's unlike anything else. You don't have a feeling that you gave it everything you have and you came up short, and there's no chance at the end. So, you know, we're very hopeful that things can come back. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I'm trying to train, you know, every single day. I got plenty of time to do it if we can carve it out with the kids. After trying to teach them a school lesson or something, you know, we're able to do that. But you know, anything we can do to try to stay sharp or as sharp as we can. I think most guys are doing it, and we're just, if we get the opportunity, we're going to jump at it. We're going to want to play as long as everything's safe and healthy, and players and their families and everybody involved is safe.
Yeah, obviously players always want to play, but you know, the more I was thinking about this with you, okay, and obviously anyone that knows you and your story knows that you had CML, which is a form of leukemia, and through treatment you were full remission. However, when you hear all the stories about COVID and you know the effects it has on people with underlying conditions, does that ever creep into your mind? Like, you know, all right, as much as I love the game, is it a risk, and is it a risk I'm willing to take?
Right. So I had immediately contacted the guy, Dr. Richard Stone is at Dana-Farber in Boston, and Jennifer Reeder is at Summit Medical in Jersey, and those two hematologists and brilliant minds who have been unbelievable with me throughout my diagnosis. I've asked them, and I should probably continue to update it because we're getting new information. This is such an unknown, scary disease, virus that's come out. As far as, you know, even traveling, when I called him about my son, I said, I have to get on an airplane. This is my son. I have to go and, you know, make sure that I can be with him when he has to go through this operation. We didn't really know what it was that was causing the bleed in my son's chin, whether it was an infection or if he was going back to square one with his jaw and his AVM. So we decided that, I mean, I'm going. Like, I decided I'm going no matter what. I have to be there. But he said, you know, I'm healthy. I'm still at all zeros. I'm in full molecular remission. My body feels great. He said, you're as healthy as anybody else. And you know, there's obviously been new studies coming out. We've tried to stay on top of that. You know, all signs point out the medication that I take doesn't suppress my immune system, so I don't think I'm at more risk. And again, everything's at all zeros. So it really is, you know, based on how I feel, you know, I feel completely normal. I feel great. It's, I know how I felt when I was sick, and you know, I really haven't been back there since I started on this medicine, nowhere even close to that. So it's something I love to do. It's a great thing for my family. Yeah, we make a lot of sacrifices, and we have to kind of be away, and we've moved around quite a bit. My family's been unbelievable with that, but the insurance that we get with it that's treated me and treated my son, and you know, the things that come with playing, and just the fact that I feel like this is something that I was always born to do. I'm going to do it as long as I possibly can. And if the risks outweigh the reward, I'd stop. But to that, I don't think we're anywhere near that point right now. And with the league and what they're doing, I don't think anybody would ever put anybody's health at risk. And I'm sure I'd be vetted and made sure of and checked, and the research would be there for me to be able to play without any kind of worries.
And take it for someone who's seen him, you know, day in and day out, how much he appreciates the game. It could be a Disney story, whether it be your dad's story and his pilgrimage to Yugoslavia, or the fact that you played over 700 games over 12 seasons for 5 teams, and you had never scored a hat trick until Monday, November 5th, 2018 in Pittsburgh, which was exactly 2 weeks after you announced that you were in full remission. Again, another layer. That night was the Pittsburgh Penguins Hockey Fights Cancer Night, and you go out and score a hat trick. Where does that rank among your NHL moments?
You know, if you watch my reaction, I really couldn't believe it. And the girls themselves, you get deflections every game. You get chances like that. They don't usually go in. And I was, I had to put me on the power play for most of that year. That was, my big contributing role, I think, on the team. I was on that first unit. I played some penalty kill, and I'm out there with Palmieri and Taylor Hall and Nico, and the puck found me a couple times, and then for whatever reason, for the hat trick, I was over on the half wall just because of how he entered the zone. It's just so funny because it's unlikely. The Hart Trophy winner finds me through about 3 guys' legs for kind of a backdoor one-timer for the hat trick one. And I just kind of looked up at Kyle, who was in front of the net at the time, and he kind of, his face, really, did that just happen? Really special because of, it was a good opportunity to kind of share the message of, again, what I had been through, how I had been treated and taken care of, and the outreach that people had for me, and for me to be able just to encourage more people if they hear of friends or family that have been through kind of what I went through, to not be scared to reach out to them. And you don't really need to even know what to say, because I think that's really what most people wonder. They say, that's terrible news. What would I even say to this person? And just treat them like a person, really. Like, I'm praying for you. I'm thinking about you. And there was a lot of outpour after that again. And I kind of wanted just to reiterate the fact that, a bigger issue than me playing hockey or me coming back is the amount of people that have to go through that. And in times like today, it's even more prevalent because of what we're dealing with now, and those other evil things like cancer and heart disease and diabetes, they're still out there too, and they're wreaking havoc. So the more we can donate if you're able to, or support some causes if you're able to, the better off more people in this world will be, and you can leave the world better than you found it. That's the message I think that me and my wife have always tried to get across.
It's unbelievable. Brian, we're pressed for time tonight, and when you said you could do this, we arranged everything so we could at least get you on. I do a whole show on you, and I want to thank you for fitting us in tonight. More importantly, I need to thank you for your 5 seasons as a Ranger. Night in, night out, you would always be by your locker stall, giving me honest answers to any question I ever asked you. And one of the moments I've shared on this show a number of times is in the 2011-2012 season, with like 5 seasons left in the season. I thank you for always being at your locker. And you asked me why I was thanking you now with so much time left in the season. I told you I was getting my hip replaced and hopefully I'd be back in time for the playoffs. At that point, you called Callie over and Double A over and a few of the other guys to wish me luck. And that's just a small snapshot of what you're all about. And, even walking into the All-Star game, all right, I hadn't seen you in like 2 or 3 years, and immediately you recognized me, hand out, and it's just the way you purport yourself. And that's why always on this show I say I have 2 favorite NHL teams, the New York Rangers and whatever team Brian Boyle is playing on. So I just wanted to thank you. I really can't wait to see you on the ice again. You can check with your agent. All last summer I kept on saying, any call from the Rangers for Brian, any call for the Rangers for Brian. So thanks again, and thanks for really fitting us in tonight, because I really appreciate it.
Oh, it really was my pleasure. Thank you. It's nice to talk a little hockey again and get me excited, and those years in the Rangers, I mean, everywhere I've been so lucky. So those are great memories. It was a great opportunity for me, and I appreciate it. I appreciate all the media, because it tells a story of what we're doing, whether it's what we want to hear or not, but it keeps people engaged so we can do what we want to do. And listen, thank you for having me on, and I'll come back.
Great.
Maybe if time's just slow, let me know.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be slow. Anytime you want to come on, we'll take you up on that, because I'd like to do, talk about your dad's story. There's a lot we could talk about for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, Brian, be safe and be strong, and love to the family.
Yeah, you too. Stay safe. Be smart. Hopefully we're done with this soon.
All right, Brian Boyle of the Florida Panthers again. 2 favorite teams, Rangers and whatever jersey Brian Boyle is wearing. All right, everybody, hope you enjoyed it. We'll see everyone in 2 weeks, but there'll be 3 Facebook Live shows during the week. See you then.